The North East has a rich history and heritage full of stories, but it's also a region that has gone through a lot of change over the years. So how do we keep tales of the generations that came before us safe for the generations to come? Well, I recently had a chat with a local charity hoping to do just that. North Shields Heritology brings stories of North Shields to life using technology like virtual reality, immersive sound and augmented reality. I had a chat with Trustee Keith and volunteer Charlotte Bilby. I started by asking Keith how he first got involved with the project.
It's a long story, but I'll keep it very short. I've been involved in heritage projects in North Shields before. My wife and I were part of the group that raised the money for Fiddler's Green Memorial, and we also helped a friend of ours, Dave Young, who's secretary of the Heritology project now, raise money for a permanent memorial to North Shields artist Victor Noble Rainbird. So we'd done things before, but one of the things that we noticed with those two projects were they were mainly older people who attended or who showed an interest and already had an interest in heritage. So we wanted to try and attract the younger audience to heritage. We figured that technology would be a good way to do it because, you know, they love the technology, iPads, phones, games, that type of stuff. So that's how Heritology came about, through technology.
Oh, I get it now. Okay, Heritology. So where did you start then? You said you wanted to attract this younger audience, you wanted to use technology. What was the first thing that you did?
We got in touch with a local organisation called Digital Catapult, North East Tees Valley, who are based out of Sunderland Software City. They've been absolutely fantastic with us. Their job is to be kind of the middleman between organisations like ours and the digital suppliers who work in the area. So we went along to one of their immersive breakfasts and we had to learn a whole new vocabulary here, I've got to say.
It's a whole new world, isn't it?
It is, it's a completely new world. And they started to show us what was possible. We have the ideas, we've got the research and the history, if you like, but Digital Catapult have been helping us figure out how we would interpret that in a digital way. So that was a great first starting point. We've been going for a year now, but we've been doing a lot of research. For example, we visited Newark to do their Civil War trail, where they used augmented reality. That was fantastic. And we did the Sill, Northumberland National Park, went up there to have a look at their stuff, just to start building ideas on how we could interpret the story that we want to tell about North Shields.
Yeah. And so how easy has it been then to engage that younger audience that you're after?
Well, we've actually just finished an engagement project with a group of 9 to 11-year-old schoolgirls from North Tyneside Learning Trust schools. They go by the name of the LittleDigiLadies because they're already working on digital projects. So we got in touch with Laura Dickinson at North Tyneside Learning Trust, who's the e-learning lead, and we set up this engagement project. And we took the girls to the Emerging Tech Lab in Proto in Gateshead, so they could see all of the kit and experience the stuff. And they had a great talk also from a lady who works in digital, Justine Collar, who is the marketing manager for Atom Hawk. Nobody's probably heard of Atom Hawk Design.
We've had them on the show, actually.
Have you? Well, there you are.
But up until that point, I hadn't heard of them, no.
Well, you'll know then, they did a lot of the set design and artwork for the Marvel blockbuster Guardians of the Galaxy. And they did that right here in Gateshead. So we took the girls there, they loved it, and then we took them down to North Shields to do some work on the wooden dolly, and that's where my friend here, Charlotte, came in.
And we'll talk to Charlotte in a few moments' time. As part of this project, you found out actually other people were quite willing to volunteer too, didn't you?
Oh, God, yeah.
Which must have been really nice that
people
were so up for it, if you like.
Do you know what? In North Tyneside, I attended a meeting just recently. There are so many voluntary organisations working in North Tyneside. It's absolutely fantastic. It's a real vibrant part of the community. So we have 8 researchers working for us at the moment, drawn from all sorts of backgrounds. We are looking at one particular part of North Shields for this project, which is what used to be called Lowtown, but it was also called the Street of All Nations because of the huge diversity in the population.
And this is on the Fish Quay?
That's right. It's the low road that runs along the Fish Quay from the ferry landing right along to where Fiddler's Green is now.
Which, of course, has changed quite dramatically in recent years, hasn't it?
Oh,
There's been an awful lot of redevelopment.
Yeah, it's changed beyond all recognition. I mean, it's great. It's really vibrant down there now. But back in the 1850s, which is where we're starting our story, it wasn't like that at all.
And that's what you've got to try and capture, isn't it, I guess, and hang on to or pass these stories, these memories on to the younger generation.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the heart of it. The stories are absolutely at the heart of it. We don't want to tell the history of the place through the kind of politicians or the kingmakers or the industrialists. We want to tell it through the tales of ordinary people. And we've got some cracking stories to tell about the people who lived down there.
You do special memory cafes, don't you? Encouraging people to pass on their stories. How does that work?
We do. Well, we have put it out on social media. North Shields Library is very good. They help us to do that. Basically, we just invite people in for a coffee and just sit and tell us their stories. We've had some great people in. The last one, a guy came in from Hetton in County Durham.
Yeah.
I thought, what's he doing coming in from Hetton? But his grandfather had a fish shop in Hetton, and he used to get on a horse and cart from Hetton to North Shields to buy his fish. God knows how long it took him to get there. But he had memories. And when you see older people, they come alive when they start talking about their memories. There was one poor old lady which had earlier Alzheimer's, and she didn't say much until her husband, who was sat next to her, started singing a song about the war, and she joined in. And in no time at all, the pair of them were having a good sing-song and said it was the best day out they'd had for ages. So,
wow.
But yeah, the stories are absolutely everything.
So that things aren't forgotten.
Yes.
This morning, you're hearing from a charity hoping to keep the heritage of North Shields alive for future generations. North Shields Heritology are using technology such as virtual reality to make sure these incredible stories aren't lost forever. Keith Spedding is a trustee at the charity and told me they've unearthed loads of fascinating tales over the years, including an unexpected link between North Shields and one of the most famous buildings in the world.
Well, in 1850, Smith's Dock in North Shields, which is now a really swanky housing development, was the biggest ship repair and shipbuilding dock in the world. And a ship was built there called the Ptarmigan. The Navy bought it and renamed it HMS Resolute. And it became an Arctic survey vessel. Unfortunately, on an expedition, it was trapped in the pack ice and had to be abandoned. And several years later, an American whaler found it 1,200 miles from where it had been abandoned and took it into Boston Harbour. The Americans renovated it, sailed it back to England and presented it to Queen Victoria as an act of friendship between the two nations. When the ship was actually decommissioned, Queen Victoria remembered this and asked the carpenters at Chatham Dockyard to make a desk from the timbers. And that desk is called the Resolute Desk. And it's the desk the President of the United States sits behind to this day in the Oval Office. And that just blows my mind. Every time I say it, I just think, wow.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So we've had one or two examples of why it's really important to capture it, because people we've had at our memory cafes that we've set a time to go and record at home have passed away in the meantime. You know, so it's a real reminder that these things are disappearing really, really quickly.
And last year you became a charity, so tell me about that.
We did. On December 18th last year, we got our accreditation as a registered charity. The reason we did that, two reasons, I guess. We hoped it would open us up to more funding opportunities. But also, this is a long-term project. For all, we're starting on this low road in North Shields. It can be expanded into what happened in Shields during the First World War, what happened in the Second World War, how did technology change the place, you know, the move from sailing, fishing boats to steam. There are massive amounts of stuff to do. So we hope, long after I've finished doing it, that somebody else will pick it up and carry it on from here.
Heritologists.com is the website.
That's right.
If people want to find out more.
Well, we'd love it if people have any memories of North Shields, not just the fish quay, that's where our main interest is, but any stories about North Shields. If they can contact us via that website, we'd love to hear from them.
Well, Charlotte, you're one of the volunteers, and you came to the project by way of prisons. Now, explain this to me, Charlotte, if you would.
That's right. So I live in North Shields. I'm interested in local history. But for 20 years, I was a criminologist. I worked in universities. I worked for Northumbria University for a long time. I had started to do quite a bit of work on the North Shields mugshots. So this is a sort of a Harry Potter type enormous leather-bound book that's in the Tyne and Wear archives, and it's got about 1,200 pictures of people from North Shields who were arrested for shoplifting to murder. I became interested in how we sort of view offenders, so how we thought about people who'd broken the law 100 years ago. So you can see on Tyne and Wear website all of these, a number of these photographs, and people thinking, oh, look at her, she looks so sad, she looks so poor. And this is kind of a really different way of thinking about offenders than we would describe today.
It really is, and you brought some pictures. I know there's some stories and some pictures that have stayed with you. And we've had a look through these, and I was like, oh, well, what can she possibly have done? I mean, tell us about that.
Yeah, so
she looks like a lovely grandma.
She does. She possibly was a lovely grandma as well. But this is Elizabeth Dawson. She's in her late 50s. She's a widow. She's a dressmaker. She would take women's skirts in and to pretend to alter them, but then she'd go down to the pawn shop and pawn them and then take the money and use it on drink. And there are lots of stories in the Shields Daily News about Elizabeth and about Elizabeth being in the magistrate's court for being drunk and disorderly. She'd lost her husband and perhaps things just fell apart for her.
And then we've got this one here. Now, a very beautiful young woman. She doesn't look like a criminal. She's not dressed like a criminal.
No. This is Sarah Bankoff. She worked in domestic service because at her throat you can see a little brooch, and that brooch would have had her name on it, so the people that employed her, they didn't have to remember her name, they could just read it off her brooch. And she was done for burglary. She was married, and she used to go and burgle with perhaps a man who wasn't necessarily her husband, and she came from South Shields, but she did a lot of burglary in North Shields.
She crossed the water.
She crossed the water.
Well, it is fascinating. You're absolutely right. So you've been using technology in this project, haven't you? Tell us what you've been doing.
We worked with some girls from North Tyneside schools, and then we took the girls out to look at the wooden dolly in Northumberland Square. What we wanted to do was to make a 3D model of the dolly. We got the girls to take out their tablets, and they took 300 photographs.
Wow.
Yeah, they were put into a piece of software called Meshroom, and they were turned into a 3D online model that could be then used for virtual and augmented reality. We took the 3D model and we printed out a tiny little version of the wooden dolly, kind of a sort of a 6-inch version of the wooden dolly. So the girls have been looking at something that's really important to North Shields, that's part of North Shields heritage, and turning it into something which is modern, up-to-date, bang up-to-date, and can be used and looked at and seen, from across the world, really.
Yeah, absolutely, and learning in a way that they probably don't even realise.
That's right.
It's such a clever way of doing it.
It's really important we tell stories about everybody in society. Yeah, we hear about the mayor of Tynemouth and the police chief in Tynemouth, but it's really important to hear about everybody else who lived in Tynemouth and North Shields as well. It's essential we still understand people's stories, so we understand who we are from where we've come from as well. If we lose the stories of the people who were arrested in North Shields 100 years ago, we lose the story about what North Shields was,
It's social history, isn't it?
It's social history, absolutely.
It's really important social history. And if you want to find out more, perhaps you've got some stories of North Shields that you'd like to share, you can do with the project at heritologists.com. It is BBC Newcastle, Radio for the North East.